Hello, fellow film fanatics, and welcome back to the car ride home. I'm Adam.
And I'm Jesse.
This is a show all about movies, the good, the bad, and the stuff that makes you go,
Basically.
Yep, and we're back for another one of these.
So today we're going to talk about all things Spider-Man.
Do 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 do.
Can I just say Spider-Man is probably my favorite superhero. He's
I'd
he's
say
great.
that as well.
Yeah. Like everyone loves Spider-Man. He's your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and we've had many different cinema adaptations of Spider-Man.
We've had a lot of different adaptations just in general. TV, comics,
I mean,
movies,
we both watched the cartoon Spider-Man
commercial.
back in like the 90s, right? That was awesome.
Yeah.
You remember that with Carnage and
Yeah, I remember that one.
the Hobgoblin and
I
all
also,
that.
when I was little, I had this DVD set of the old '60s cartoon, the one that everyone makes memes out of.
Oh, that one, yeah.
Yeah, I have I think I still have that of all of them. I just watch on my laptop at night.
Mhm.
It was great.
Yeah, those are great. I mean, they're all great. I didn't. There are Spider-Man movies I don't like.
All right, let's
But
before we get into that, let's talk about the history of Spider-Man movies.
yeah, let's do that.
So, in the '80s, Michael Jackson tried to buy Marvel because he wanted to play Spider-Man. And that's all I
True
know
story.
about
True
that
story.
actually happened. He tried to do it. Obviously, he didn't succeed, and now he's dead. So sad. But
Just made the cross.
Yeah. He's doing that great moonwalk in the sky. Anyways, but there was always a plan to get a Spider-Man movie going, and so off the success of Terminator and Aliens, and I guess maybe Terminator 2 at this point, I'm not quite sure. I don't know if it was even Sony, but Marvel more or less enlisted the help of James Cameron to write and direct a Spider-Man movie, and you can find, or at least parts of his script online. And have you read it?
No, I
It's
haven't.
bizarre.
It really?
It's so weird. It makes him there's this really graphic specific scene of him perving on Mary Jane, and the upside down kiss in the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a weird alternate version of that with groping, and it's so uncomfortable. It's really bizarre.
James Cameron for the type. But
Yeah, I know. It's. Anyways, and that did lead into that great joke in Entourage where he directed the Aquaman movie.
Oh. Yeah.
But yeah. So I'm kind of glad that version didn't get made.
But anyways.
So, real quick, the interesting thing about the Spider-Man franchise is because, as you know, very recently, Marvel, the MCU, just got the rights back to do that to the character. And the reason that
Didn't
happened...
Marvel always have the rights to Spider-Man?
Well, here, I'm getting into that.
Okay.
So, Marvel Comics in the 90s was, on the verge of bankruptcy. They were not doing too hot. And what they ended up doing to make ends meet was that they started selling off their characters to different studios. So, I want to say Fox got Blade, and that turned into the movie trilogy Blade, and then they got X-Men, and Sony got Spider-Man, and they did that to make money. And this is pre-MCU, pre-any plans. So, while Marvel Comics has always owned the rights to the Spider-Man character, cinematically speaking, they only recently, the Marvel Studio brand recently got it back. And so the reason we have the original 3 Spider-Man movies and the Andrew Garfield movies before this new one with Tom Holland was because they didn't own the rights to the character for that reason.
And it was Sony. Okay.
Yes, and Sony had the rights for so long. So let's get into the first Spider-Man, Spider-Man 1.
So, I just want to get this out of the way. I grew up with the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy.
So did I.
They're just... So, I recently, back in April of this year, so I hadn't seen the Spider-Man movie for the longest time. Ever since I was, I think, 12 or so, I hadn't seen them until this point.
Mm-hmm.
I recently rewatched them. The Sam Raimi ones.
Okay, yeah.
Recently, I rewatched all 3 of them in April, and the whole time, I just fell in love with these movies. I just remember how awesome they are.
Yeah.
I love the Sam Raimi trilogy, and I hate to spoil it for you already, but nothing will ever beat it for me. And that kind of puts what I think of the other movies on. We'll talk about those movies too, but the Sam Raimi trilogy is just
That's
excellent.
your favorite?
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I think my favorite's probably the Garfield movies. particularly the first one. I think they really nailed the character with that film, but we'll get more into that in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
But Spider-Man 1, the first Spider-Man.
The first one.
I haven't seen this movie in years.
This is the most... So I recently saw it in April, right?
Right.
This one is the most Spider-Man, like, comic book Spider-Man out of the Sam Raimi trilogy.
Yeah, it's the most comic book dialogue-y.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's stuff where
Definitely.
I think the Green Goblin comes in, he, like, grabs J. Jonah Jameson, he's like, you slime. Like, no one calls anybody slime.
Yeah, I know. And can we just talk a minute about Tobey Maguire hitting on Kirsten Dunst?
Oh my god.
That is
Can we
the
just
most,
talk about those two in general?
That is the most painful thing I have ever seen. I was cringing in my chair. You have no idea.
Oh man, those two together are not.
So, like,
I think Tobey Maguire's an okay Spider-Man, but that romance is awful.
So
It's
okay,
so bad.
I love it, but it's hard to watch.
See, but I don't like it because I don't think there's like no chemistry between the two.
There's
of them.
not, and it's
like nothing happens.
It's such a childish like hitting on each other. You know, it's so childish, and
you know what it is? It's like a sitcom, like Will They Won't They?
Yeah,
for
yeah,
like
just like
3 movies. And after the first one, I'm like, I don't care if they get together. I just don't care.
Well, see, I do. I was cringing. I was like, oh man, this is so painful to watch. Like, oh man, it's bad. And like the whole scene where like she waves at him and like he waves back, but it's like they're really the person behind him. And it's like, oh.
I think that because I think there is a set way to make a superhero movie these days because it's become its own genre in a sense. That looking back at kind of the first couple of cracks at it, like I think the original Superman movies, or at least the first one, did it pretty well. Tim Burton did a pretty good job with the Batman movies, but you can definitely see the kind of the steps taken to try and make this more believable, or try and make this like something that audiences will enjoy.
Yeah, definitely. These movies are very different from superhero movies today.
Yeah, they're stepping stones.
And why do you think that is? Why they're different?
I actually have a theory about this, and this more or less applies to... I have this theory for the Batman films. So I think what we know as a superhero movie really came about with The Dark Knight more than any of them. Even a little bit Batman Begins, but I definitely think The Dark Knight. And I think what the original couple of filmmakers did, like your Sam Raimi, your Bryan Singer, Tim Burton, Richard Donner, etc., they kind of tried to take the comic book world and just paste it over top ours. So, like, it looks like the real world, but it functions like a comic book world. Whereas I think more modern movies, definitely The Dark Knight, I'd argue some of the earlier Marvel movies, kind of build our world into a comic book world. So they take it from the ground up and they kind of expand it into something that more resembles what you'd read on the comics. Like if you look Iron Man 1 to Iron Man 3, you can see a progression of like wackiness.
Yeah, you can. You really
but
can.
You're bought into that original world so much that when you get to that point, you're like, oh yeah, this is more believable. Where like if the first Iron Man movie was Iron Man 3, like that kind of aesthetic, you'd be like, this is very jarring.
Yeah, it's very wacky and
And I think, and not only have they been building that universe that way, but I think they've been building us as filmgoers to be more, what's the word? Like conditioned for that. So like when something like Guardians of the Galaxy comes out that's super wacky and super bizarre, we're kind of like, oh yeah, it's a superhero movie. It's another comic book thing. Like we're kind of used to it at this point, but back then, I think with the Spider-Man movies and the Superman Batman movies, they more or less just were like, all right, let's try and start wacky, and so it worked for the time. But you look back and you're like, that's pretty out there.
Yeah, and they definitely are more realistic. The first few, but one thing, can I point out one thing?
Okay.
I like the biological web shooters just out of his hands better than the
See,
machine.
I don't.
You don't? Okay.
No.
Now, why don't you? Like
I don't know. It's like
it's less accurate to the comic. I know. It is.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Like, does his body just have an endless supply of?
He's a
like,
superhero. It's not supposed to make
okay,
sense.
but at the same time, if they're trying to make it more quote unquote realistic, then that opens up so many other questions.
I think it just makes for a better Spider-Man because it doesn't have to deal with web shooters, because that adds a reality to Spider-Man, and I like to think of Spider-Man as just having unlimited web, and
I
and that's what he
get
can do.
that, but at the same time, I feel like Spider-Man as a character has always been resourceful. Like if he needs something, he just makes it.
Yeah,
And I think the fact that they gave him the webs, the organic webs, and like they kind of seem like sketching the costume, but it's almost like you're kind of watching like, oh, he's coming up with the costume, and he's just in the costume. Like you almost never see where it comes from.
sure.
Or you're just kind of like, oh, it just kind of appears.
Well, he has that whole like with the Bruce Campbell cameo and the
Yeah,
fight
he
in
has
the
like
cage.
that.
Yeah.
I get that. Like he has the original concept behind
Oh,
it,
but
then
how he
it's
gets
just-
from that one to the
exactly. There's
you never
no
see
like,
it.
yeah, and that's I think.
Well, you don't really see that in the Amazing Spider-Man either.
Yeah, you do. You see him like go online, order like ski slope suits, and then he like takes the sunglasses and builds the mask.
He does.
So
do that.
like, and I think that cut. Well, we can get to that later, but
Yeah.
I think I don't know. There's something about. I think Maguire's a fine Spider-Man, like fine maybe high school era, like early adult Spider-Man, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think that I think
I don't like
Maguire's
organic
fine.
web series. Is my
Yeah,
point.
I think Maguire is fine. But anyways, let's talk about Spider-Man 2.
All right. Well, no. Wait, real quick. What about some of the other supporting characters? So you got
we have Willem Dafoe.
Willem Dafoe.
Great Green Goblin. Excellent.
Yeah.
He's very
I don't like-
sinister. He's very I
don't like the mask though.
Spider-Man.
I don't really like the costume in
So
general.
did you know that there was supposed to be an animatronic Green Goblin mask?
Yeah.
Did you know that?
I did.
Yeah.
That they.
And it looked much better. It really did. I forget why they went with the
It probably was more
the solid
expensive.
mask. Probably, yeah. But there was supposed to be an animatronic. Like, it was supposed to move.
And
as
you
he-
can find footage of test footage of that online.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know the costume because if you look at the Green Goblin, it's like a green and purple kind of like he has like green skin, like a cloak and like a hood, and this one's just like green armor, which I guess kind of makes sense.
It's more
for-
realistic. It's like a military project.
Yeah,
because
and
that's what it was.
Yeah, but I think just
But then the
retroactively
mask.
speaking, it looks goofier.
Yeah.
Than, but I think he's a good Green Goblin. I think James Franco's actually not bad in this.
No, he's great. I like him better than Dane DeHaan in The Amazing
Oh,
Spider-Man.
absolutely, he's a much
Yeah.
better Harry. And super old Aunt May.
Yeah, super old.
Like-
well, I think May's too young in the Spider-Man Homecoming.
I agree with that.
Way too young.
Oh my god, there's this great meme of like.
So I think that The Amazing Spider-Man is the happy middle,
I agree with
happy
that,
medium.
but there's this great meme of like 2002. It was old Aunt May, and then like kind of like early 30s Spider-Man, and then scaled down like 20 years or 10 years for the next one. Scaled down another 10 years, so it's like 50, and then teenager Spider-Man, and then the next one is going to be like 20-year-old Aunt May, 9-year-old Spider-Man.
yeah. Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's that. Can we just give a shout out to J.K. Simmons
Oh my
as
God. The
J.J.
best
Jameson
comic book casting
ever?
period will never be topped. Just dead on.
He's just. I mean, is there anything more we can say about it? It's just perfect.
Oh my god, he's so. I think J.K. Simmons is an underutilized actor.
Yeah.
Because if you just let him go wild, my god, can he make some amazing work? And there's no. I wish they could bring him back into this new Spider-Man world, but the fact that he's Commissioner Gordon now breaks my heart.
Yeah.
Although, it'd be hilarious if they got. So he's now Commissioner Gordon. What if they got Gary Oldman to play J. Jonah Jameson? Because I feel like if there's anyone else to get, it would probably be him.
no, there's no one else. You can't you can't possibly. It's like, yeah. Now they'll know what they're missing and like,
Yeah.
J.K. Simmons. But anyways,
So Spider-Man 1, if you had to give it a score, let's say out of...
I don't like putting numbers
You
on
don't
movies
like it.
because that assigns the movie to a number and just loses all its value.
Okay.
I think I'm going to give it a rating though. I think Spider-Man 1 is an excellent popcorn superhero movie, and it's very memorable, and that's what it is. It's very memorable, very good superhero movie.
I'll give it
Yeah.
3 spiders out of 5.
3 spiders out of 5. Yeah.
My new obligatory rating system.
Yeah,
I'm going to rate
spiders.
everything spiders.
Now we're rating everything with spiders.
So how do you feel about Baby Driver? 5 spiders out of 5.
Spider-Man 2. My opinion,
Mhm.
it is the best Marvel movie ever made.
Really?
Yes, I think so.
Even better than Howard the Duck from 1980.
I didn't think about that one. Obviously, it's
George
the best.
Lucas classic.
Yeah, sure.
Don't
So,
watch that.
Spider-Man 2, not only is it an excellent superhero movie, it's just a good movie in general. It has... The problem with Marvel movies is they don't utilize their villains enough. In this one, the villain is perfect. You understand where he's coming from. For goodness sake, Peter Parker's friends with him in the beginning, and they know each other. And then there's the excellent train scene towards the end where he gets his powers back, and there's the whole love struggle.
That is a great action scene.
Yeah, and the romance is cheesy, right? But I was a kid, but I love it in the end where he takes his mask off and Mary Jane sees him. And it's like, finally, relief.
I think of the Maguire trilogy. This is the one that's closest to a Spider-Man that I recognize. Like, he's more quippy in this.
Yeah,
he
is.
He seems to just have more fun as Spider-Man. Like, the first one's very mopey, and there's a little bit of that in this one because he's losing his powers. But
yeah.
It's a fun one to watch. Again, the dialogue is super hokey.
Yeah,
super comic booky.
The dialogue is extremely cheesy. I'll give you that, but I like it. If you're looking at this for a good superhero movie and not for like a very Quentin Tarantino style dialogue movie, you'll be fine. It's
no Casablanca.
No Casablanca. No Pulp Fiction. But
it's totally good for what it is. I remember seeing it when it came out. I was real young, and I have such a very vivid memory of like the theater I was at, who I was with, like the time I saw it.
Oh, do you? Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember the standout scene for me. I don't know what it is, but there's like a scene of him swinging through the city, and there's like a truck going by, like an 18-wheeler, and he swings by like the space between the truck and the trailer.
Yeah, he does.
I don't know what it is. That's so cool to me.
It is cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
He I mean, back when I saw it, this is like, how old was I? It came out in what, 2004, 2005? Yeah, I must have been. So I had this huge crush on this one girl when I was at that age. And
Kirsten Dunst.
Yeah, Kirsten Dunst. Yeah, no. She will remain unnamed, but it's my crush on her was exactly like the way that Tobey Maguire goes out pursuing Mary Jane.
So you were waving and she was waving, but was that someone
it's like,
else?
But it really is. It's almost like a kid, having a crush on this girl.
Yeah, but they're like 20.
But they're 20. That's what makes it painful to watch.
Oh, God.
But it's just, it was so that I was able to connect on that level with it. Also, the video games of these movies are great. I remember playing those.
Yeah, I played the first one at my cousin's house, and I remember it being a lot of fun. I know everyone says Spider-Man 2 is like one of the best movie licensed games out there, and I've just never gotten across it. Apparently the web sling's amazing.
Yeah.
But
I played the Spider-Man 3 game more than
I played
the
that
others.
one a lot.
Yeah.
I beat that one like on 2 different systems.
Nice.
Yeah. Speaking of which, well, first of all, Dr. Octopus is I'll get into who I think the best villain is, but I think he's definitely up there.
I think he's great. I think, my opinion,
he's my favorite of the trilogy, for
my
sure.
opinion, he's the best, but that's because I'm biased. Also, can we give a cameo or a shout out? So Sam Raimi has to put a little horror in this. The scene where his tentacles come alive, his arms.
That seems terrifying.
Yeah,
they're trying to chainsaw him off, and he's just
killing them. Like you see the camera go in the face, and well, first of all, I'm a huge fan of The Evil Dead. I haven't seen the other 2 movies because I hear they're like horror comedy. And
the first one.
The first one. I've seen The Evil Dead. I think it's great. It's one of my favorite horror movies. I'll get into my favorites later, but
at some point.
Very well directed, excellent movie.
I feel like this whole podcast is just going to be us like, we'll talk about this, but at a different time.
At a different time.
That's how we get them back in.
So, yeah, I thought it was cool, though, because it's like a little horror cameo inside of a Spider-Man movie. So
and the fact that Bruce Campbell is in it.
And Bruce Campbell is in it, too. I love his cameo in the third one the best, but this one
is that the one
funny.
at the theater?
He's the French guy.
Yeah.
Later, but
what's he in this? Okay, so the first
Shoelace. You might want to.
Yeah. So the first one.
Can I help you?
The first one, he's the guy at the ring.
Yeah.
What's he in this one?
So he goes in the first one. He's like, "What's your name, kid?" The Human Spider.
Spider-Man. Yeah, he names him.
Yeah. All right, let's give it up for Spider-Man. Yeah.
What is he in this one?
No, he's the. I just said it. He's the theater guy. Remember?
Wait, I thought that was the third one.
No, in the third one, he's the French waiter.
Oh, he's the waiter. Oh, yes. Okay.
He's not really a waiter, but...
No, I know what you're talking about.
And that's a good segue into Spider-Man 3.
Yep.
So this is a more controversial one, so let's be very...
Divisive.
Wait,
let's say what we think about it on 3. 3, 2, 1.
Excellent.
Good. Okay, cool.
So here's why I love Spider-Man 3. Because when I used to live in China, actually, and when I was there... We didn't have access to a lot of movies that came out, right? So we had the movies that we owned, and one of them was Spider-Man 2.
Right.
So I watched that movie all the time. Because when you're a kid, you just watch movies over and over again. And that was the one that I watched all the time. And it was good, but I was looking for something more, right? Like more Spider-Man. That was a more adult movie, and now I appreciate it more.
Yeah.
Spider-Man 3 comes out, and there was an English showing near where we lived, and I was just beside myself in excitement to see this movie. I go and see it, and I just remember it was awesome. I loved it. I love the action. Like, I love Venom. I love the... I mean, it has the most action out of all of them, definitely.
I think it has the best looking action,
Best looking action, yeah. And then I rewatched it this April. A lot of it is cheesy, like, but it definitely... And of course the scene where he's going around the town like dancing and I was just laughing my head off during that scene.
I think that's very Peter Parker.
Yeah, it's very Tobey Maguire, Peter Parker. But I just think it is what it is. You know, enjoy it for a good popcorn superhero movie, and I think that it's.
I actually do agree. I don't think this one is as bad as everyone makes it out to be.
Not.
I think I like it probably about as much as I like the other two.
Yeah.
And I think maybe part of that is rose-colored glasses.
I'll be honest, it is.
Yeah, no, glasses, totally. Yeah. I remember. I had a fun story about this one too. Actually, I remember, like the day after I got Spider-Man 2, me and my cousin are speculating over what the third one's gonna be.
Really?
We're like, oh, you see him confront. He finds the Goblin's lair, or this is happening. And they're rumoring about Venom and all this other stuff. Like, I used to call my cousin up like every couple of weeks, just like, what do you think's gonna be in Spider-Man 3? And then like we just don't hear about it because like I think the first one was like 2002, and then 2004 was the second one. So we're like, oh, it's gonna come out in 2006. 2006 rolls around. Where's the movie? And then I remember I'm like, oh my god, maybe it's not gonna happen. And then I saw like a Ellen DeGeneres interview or something like that with Tobey Maguire, and he's like, yeah, we're working on the third one, and I'm like, yeah, and then it's like rumor about Venom, and I'm like, oh my god, it's happening,
Venom, yeah.
And then I see that, and then I'm going into the supermarket with my mom and brother, and we bump into one of my friends' moms, and I'm like, I just want to tell someone about Spider-Man 3. I'm like, oh my god, I'm so excited. Because somehow Spider-Man comes up in the conversation. I don't know why. But I'm like, yeah, Spider-Man 1 was great too. And then 3 is coming out, and it's going to be awesome. And then the woman, swear to God, she just looks at me and she goes, oh, they're not making a Spider-Man 3.
What? She said...
And I'm like, I just saw it. They just confirmed it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what are you talking about? And for a second, I was like, maybe I saw an old interview. Maybe it's not happening. And then the movie comes out, and I love it.
Yeah.
Because I'm like,
that's great.
I was like, what?
Can we just give a shout out to the music in the movie? So,
Danny Elfman,
yeah. Danny Elfman.
All I remember is just a lot of strings.
By far the best music, I think, in Marvel. I really do.
Really?
In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it is the best theme song.
You don't like Star-Lord dancing to 70s music?
So that's not for the movie.
Okay,
it's good music, but it's not for, like, they didn't write it for Guardians of the Galaxy. Just, like, listen to the theme song of Spider-Man, and it just pumps you up. I love it. It's great. Yeah.
I think I like about these movies is that you don't see this a lot in movies today, is that they still have title sequences.
Yeah,
like, you know,
yeah, they do.
Usually movies open up and it's like, here's the lead here's the lead actor, here's this, here's that, or that, and they're like playing music and they're showing visuals. And these movies show like events from the past films.
Yeah.
Like, can you think of a movie recently that's done that? I mean, I just saw Planet of the Apes and I kind of did something like that, but like don't you expect to go into a trilogy that kind of reminds you what happens? Like,
that's nice.
They kind of, I mean, they do that with Star Wars with the opening crawl.
So I think that in this one, so the 3 villains aspect. Let's talk about the 3 villains, right?
In this one,
yeah, in this one. So a lot of movies try to do 3 villains. They're all fine. I think Venom was great, but I wanted to see more of him.
Yeah.
I guess it's always good to leave the audience wanting more, but at the same time, what I didn't like is how. This might be because it's expensive or something, but his mask, he takes his mask, like, he peels it back, right, Venom, a lot. Yeah. I don't like that. I like Venom to be Venom. You know, I don't like to see the human side of him as I don't know what that sounds like, but it's, you know, he's terrifying. He's scary. And when he peels the mask back, it's like, oh, you know, you're a guy. Like, yeah.
That's probably just to get like the actor's face out there.
Or maybe, I don't know. My theory is that it's expensive, but I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, that's true.
We'll see.
But at the same time, you could just make a mask and make him wear it.
They could.
That costume is very CG.
It is very.
What was I about to say? This is the problem. I keep thinking
stuff
and forgetting.
Can I say I like Sandman a lot.
That's what I was gonna say. That his like birth scene. is amazing.
It really is.
It's probably the best scene in the whole movie. And I think
And he's not a bad person.
Yeah, here's the thing. I don't dislike Venom in this. Like, it was cool to see him, but he was totally superfluous to the story. I think if they just focused it, like Sandman and I don't know if he's supposed to be like Hobgoblin or something. I always say Hobgoblin.
The new Goblin. That's what they call him,
just say well, whatever. Harry.
Harry.
We'll just say Harry. I think it'd be if the movie was just like his demons are coming back to haunt him.
Yeah.
Like, here's someone's walking above me. Here's the guy who killed his uncle.
Yeah.
Versus here's the guy who was his best friend.
His best friend. Yeah.
So.
And I like the fact that they team up in the end. I really do.
Yeah, it is good closure, but I feel like if we didn't have to deal with the whole...
God, I hate that word. Don't say that.
Sorry. If we didn't have to deal with the whole Eddie Brock storyline, that it could have been a lot tighter. I know that Sam Raimi didn't want to put Venom in the movie, so the fact that...
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, the studio really pushed for him to put it in, because this is Sony just being Sony. And
but back to them teaming up in the end, like, they're best friends, but you never really see them being best friends in any of the movies until... like the end there. I mean, sure they talk, but you don't really see them hanging out until Spider-Man 3.
You never see the two of them together. It's more just like
they're at a party.
They're like either at a party or at dinner or just hanging out with
graduation.
MJ.
And when they're at graduation in the first one, like Willem Dafoe says, like, "Oh, Peter, you're the son I never had. Harry, you're a disappointment to me," and like all that. Yeah. So.
Which I guess is in line with.
Yeah, I like how they finally team up together. Yeah.
I'm not going to use the word, but it gives a good cap.
Yeah, they get back. It really fulfills their friendship.
Here's the thing: I think Spider-Man does tie up all the loose threads. Or Spider-Man 3 rather does tie up all the loose threads set by the other two movies, but not as strongly as it could be. And I think that's why people are so disappointed by it.
Yeah,
and I can totally agree, but I think for what we got, it's not the worst thing ever.
No,
like
definitely
it definitely has structure problems. And
I think it's great.
A lot of issues, but for what it is, it's fine.
Now,
Spider-Man 4.
Spider-Man 4.
Yeah, well, do you know about Spider-Man 4?
No, I don't.
So, before Spider-Man 3 kind of got hijacked by the studio and completely changed and whatnot, Raimi had planned to do Spider-Man 4 with the Vulture as the villain.
Really?
Yeah, there was like concept art of Spider-Man arresting Mysterio, who's this villain, has like this
I know.
Weird,
yeah.
You know him? Okay, cool. That makes sense. It's
That's
so hard to explain him.
Yeah.
And that Bruce Campbell was Mysterio, and somehow was also the same character in all the other
Mysterio
movies.
the whole time. Yeah.
Which I think is hilarious. And so that was the plan. And I think maybe they even wanted to have brought Venom into that movie instead, but because of all the tampering with 3, it kind of put him off the project. So him and Toby left, and that project morphed into Amazing Spider-Man, where they went younger with the reboot.
But they didn't have Vulture or Mysterio or there's Lizard.
Oh yeah, and then they had because they have the Lizard in the other movie.
Yeah.
In 2 they have Kirk Connors, because you see in 3 we see he's missing around, so I think that was another character they're going to try and bring in. But yeah, instead they just went to completely reboot the franchise.
Now let's talk about the Amazing Spider-Man. So I will give my opinion first because it's very short.
Yep.
So I think the Amazing Spider-Man it's more accurate to the comics, definitely, but it's just it's going to be hard for me to put this into words. I just don't. It's not as likable as the Sam Raimi version. I think honestly, it's a little boring. It really is. Yeah. The first action doesn't happen until like an hour and so in the movie, and it's kind of boring. So.
I mean, that's not kind of how the first one was too. Like, there wasn't a lot of action until like the middle of the movie, because a lot of it was just him learning his powers.
I think it's more likable, but I will now give the floor to you.
This is probably my favorite Spider-Man movie.
Okay.
Which is funny because how everyone feels about it, because this is also a pretty divisive film. Maybe not as much as 3 or the next movie we're going to talk about, but yeah, a lot of people aren't super keen on this one, and I remember that was my thoughts going into it. Like my same cousin who we've always been talking about Spider-Man. I remember that first trailer came out and he sent me a message like, yeah, I'm just not feeling this one. And I was like, yeah, I know. It's just like, it's not clicking. And like every subsequent trailer, I felt like I saw way too much in the movie. Like you see him getting his mask taken off in front of all the police officers and all this other stuff. I'm just like, man, there's so much. Did we say spoilers, by the way? Spoilers
spoiler
for all
warning.
these movies.
Right.
Halfway through.
Oh,
But,
quick thing. I don't like how Gwen Stacy finds out he's Spider-Man like right away. I don't like that.
Really?
Yeah.
What?
I just, I love the fact that there's a battle that Peter Parker has to fight in the Sam Raimi trilogy where it's like, it'd be really nice if I could just tell her that I'm Spider-Man, but he can't. And I like that battle. And this one is not there. It's like, oh, okay.
But at the same time, we've already solved that battle. Like, we had 3 movies where that battle was happening, so why don't we try something different?
That's a good point. That's true. Yeah.
So anyways, finally this movie comes out, and I'm just like, let's just see how this goes. And because I had the same feeling towards the Raimi trilogy as you did. Like, I rewatched them, like, the summer that movie came out, and I'm like, all right, I'm all caught up. Let's see what this new one has to add. Just loved it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd say this is objectively the best one, but this is by far my favorite one. And it all comes down to 2 things. Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone.
Yeah.
Who are by far, like, they're better than this franchise has any right to be. Like, they are so good. And, because like, you have a certain affinity for Maguire and Kirsten Dunst.
Actually, I don't think Maguire's the best Spider-Man.
No, I mean their relationship.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like,
yeah.
that kind of, like, bantering back and forth. These two are just adorable.
Yeah.
Like, my God, it's
weren't they in real life together?
Yeah, they were for, I think, these 2 movies.
Yeah, they were, and that's why it was the best. It was really good chemistry on screen because they actually were in relationship in real life.
And by far it shows. And just, here's the other thing. What did Mary Jane do to help Spider-Man in the first one? Like,
she was a damsel in distress.
Yeah, but like, so of all the times she was kidnapped, did she ever try and fend for herself?
Yeah, she tried to hit Doc Ock with a steel thing,
and how'd that go?
It didn't.
Exactly. Now think about what Gwen does in this movie. It's like, okay, the lizard is going to launch off this. Oh yeah, by the way, we have the lizard finally.
Yeah.
What do you think about that lizard effect?
The lizard effect?
Yeah.
The thing is, I don't know what he was trying to do. Like, why was he trying to make everyone lizards? Like, why? They don't really explore his motivations.
He also doesn't really look like a lizard.
Yeah.
Anyways, but so he's trying to set up a bomb, turn everyone into lizards, and Peter's like, okay, Gwen, just get out of harm's way. And she's like, no, I'm just going to go to Oscorp. I know how to synthesize a formula, so I'm going to try and do that. And I'm like, okay, so she's competent. And then the lizard barges in, so you're like, oh man, she's going to get kidnapped and be a damsel in distress. And she's like hiding in the thing. So it's like, all right, here we go. And he opens up and she sprays him with the fire extinguisher or whatever. Yeah. So she's like so much more competent. And it just makes for such a more interesting and engaging character. So yeah,
I'll give you that. I will.
I do absolutely think the movie has a lot of problems. And I think most of that is on the studio just interfering and trying to make, their version of a cinematic universe, which is ultimately what they tried to do, and I guess they're still trying to do.
So that's a question I have. Why did the Amazing Spider-Man happen? Because the Raimi trilogy happened to make Spider-Man movies, right?
Yeah.
The Spider-Man Homecoming happened
made.
for Marvel.
This one was made to retain the rights to, because as I mentioned before, Sony had the rights, and they still kind of do have the rights to Spider-Man, cinematically speaking. So if they didn't do something with the project, because they were going to do 4 and then that fell apart, so they didn't do something with the project in a certain amount of time, they had to give the rights back to Marvel. That's why we keep getting Fantastic Four movies, because they have the right, Fox has the rights to that, and they just keep trying to make one, which will never be good. But
hey, Fantastic Four was okay. That was good.
Which one?
The first one.
Oh, you mean the original?
With Chris Evans and
I think 2 is not bad. That's a conversation for a different day. Yeah, so they made this franchise as part of a salvaging of what was left of Spider-Man 4 and hold on to the rights. So it definitely has that kind of slap together feel to it, but the good stuff in it is just so good. Like, the web slinging is fantastic.
It's more realistic in this one.
Spider-Man's actually quippy. Like, he's more. I mean, like, yeah, he's a little too cool for Peter Parker, but I kind of see. I like the more loner kind of take on him. It just feels more relatable, I think. The web slinging is good. The effects are pretty solid, except for the lizard. But I think when you see him swinging around and stuff, I kind of get I get more of a feeling of motion than I did with the.
There's a few first-person shots in this one.
Yeah, and I do like that. Like, it definitely feels, to me, it feels more like Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Than I ever felt with the Raimi trilogy, because I felt like in the Raimi trilogy I'm just kind of watching Spider-Man swing by, and this one I feel like I'm actually with him.
Yeah,
and it's not just the
done
first
better.
person; it's just like in general. I just feel like I'm moving with him.
Directed by Mark Webb.
I think that's funny. I think he's a good director. Like, he does the best with what he's given here, and he really brings across like good characters and like knows how to show off this action. So I give him a lot of credit, even though his name is very ironic.
It's just it's
if they only picked him because of the name, they did luck out.
Yeah.
He's a fairly good director.
Now we got to talk about the second one. So I don't really like the second one, The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Me neither.
Yeah, I don't
hate it though.
So there's 3 villains, right? And I think they didn't give any of the villains enough time.
Yeah, like, I think Spider-Man 2 has 3 half-finished villains, and this one has 3 villains in name only.
In name only.
Yeah.
It's like, because Electro is just kind of...
It's a complete mess of a character.
It's
like
really
his if you want to talk about motivations, his motivations change every 5 seconds.
They do.
Like, he's like, I'm just a bumbling scientist. Oh, up into Spider-Man. I'm in love with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And then Spider-Man forgets my birthday or some whatever. And then he's like, no, I got bit by eels. And then he's like, oh, I'm freaking out. So I have to like go and like walk around. That's funny. My lights just flashed. I'm talking about Electro. And he's like, I'm walking out into Times Square, and Spider-Man shows up, and he's like, oh, he takes all the attention away from me. And he like wanders out, and he's like, oh, now I'm bad. And then Spider-Man's like, oh, I have to stop you because you're freaking out, destroying the city. He's like, no, now I'm evil. I'm going to work with the Green Goblin to be against you. Which, by the way, the Green Goblin's in this movie.
Yeah.
Kind of.
I didn't... So, I like the new Goblin and the Green Goblin and Sam Raimi. Like, they're
so much better.
I don't like Dane DeHaan as Green Goblin. He looks ugly. He's just like...
it's an awful design.
It's like one of his arms is like so much bigger than the other. And
it's like a metal
Wait,
thing.
I know what it is, but it doesn't look good, you know?
Yeah.
And...
Which is... Here's the thing. Half of this movie is a really great Spider-Man film. Like, all the stuff with Gwen Stacy and Peter, all of Peter being Spider-Man. Like, the scene that I just talked about with him in Times Square where you're like, you see his Spider sense, and he's like, okay, this web shooter is broken. This is going this way. There are people about to get shot. Like, you see him, like, work through it, and you, like, kind of really get a sense of, oh, this guy is very capable of doing this kind of a gig. And then the other half of it is just this really poorly put together kind of trying to build up a cinematic universe with the Sinister Six and all this other crap that I don't care about.
I do like the first half better, yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's just him and the stuff with Gwen Stacy. And
the whole graduation speech and like going to Oxford. And
when I first saw that, I'm like, okay, so you're gone by the end of this movie, and she is, which sucks. Because that's sort of the best. If you watch that speech again, there's so much foreshadowing in that.
Yeah.
Where she's just like, let's talk about the future. Let's talk about what we're going to do with our lives. And I'm just like, bye. You're done. It's not making out of this movie. Which is, if you were sitting with me in the theater, I'd just be like, yep, you're dead.
You're dead.
So, this movie frustrates me because I wish I liked it more because there's some really great stuff in it, but it's so bogged down. I think this movie had like 6 writers.
Really?
And one of them wrote Star Trek in the Darkness, or was one of the writers on Star Trek in the Darkness with the whole magic blood thing, and there's like magic blood in this too, where it's like the cure to goblin cancer or whatever.
There we go.
God.
Yeah. So we both agree this one could have been done better.
It could have been better. And the thing is, I was so hopeful after I saw the first movie, even though it had its problems. I'm like, I was so hopeful for this new trilogy, and they botched it up so quickly and so badly.
It was supposed to be a trilogy, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was supposed to be this, and then Amazing Spider-Man 3 was going to introduce Miles Morales, who's the Black Spider-Man.
No.
And then, what was the other one? And then, like, they're going to do Sinister Six and all this other stuff, and, like, if they planned it out, it could have been good. But it was just so bad.
Yeah. Alright, so...
And because it was how bad it was, they had to give the rights back to Marvel which leads into Captain America Civil War.
Yeah.
Because that's where he debuted.
Alright, so we'll just briefly mention that because we're getting a little close on time here, but Captain America Civil War happens, right? I think the reason why he did that is just to bring him into the cinematic universe.
Absolutely.
Okay, he's in. Now we have Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yeah,
right?
Can I just say this real quick? That's my least favorite part. He's my least favorite part about Civil War.
Yeah.
Like, I think Civil War is a good movie, but it makes no sense for him to be there. Just zero sense.
0 sense.
Why would Tony Stark be that dumb?
Yeah.
When the whole movie's trying to fix his dumb mistakes, he makes another dumb mistake.
Mm-hmm. So I like Spider-Man Homecoming better than The Amazing Spider-Man. I do.
Yeah.
And the reason is, well, it's... First of all, there's one thing I don't like about it, though, and that is Spider-Man is not the master of his own universe. He's, like, sort of subjected to Tony Stark, and he's, like... It's kind of like a father-son complex. He's doing things to impress Tony Stark. He's not doing them for himself. Not because he's motivated... Well, he is motivated to, but I think for the wrong reasons. He's doing it to get that Stark internship, you know, to do all that. So that's my one problem. But what I like about this movie is it is the most accurate to the comics. Definitely. Spider-Man's really quippy. There's that whole, you know, high school dynamic of Mary Jane. Not Mary Jane. What's her name? I don't even know what the girl's name is.
Doesn't matter. Let's call it the other black chick.
The other black chick. Yeah. So there's a whole dynamic with that. It's kind of like the. It kind of has like a crush aspect to it, but you really feel for him because he wants to get closer to this girl, but he also like chooses. Like there's a scene where he's on top of the roof where they're having a pool party.
That's a great scene.
Great scene. He's in costume, and he's like, you know, that's what I'm missing by doing this.
That's like classic Spider-Man imagery too.
It really is. That is good Spider-Man
imagery. You can see that from a comic book page.
Yeah. So I thought that was done very well. Also, the Vulture. Michael Keaton is the Vulture. He's done very well.
This is my favorite Spider-Man villain and my favorite MCU villain.
Really?
By far. Blows everyone else out of the water. And here's why. Because you see where he comes from. You see him doing... You know why he's doing this. And like any good villain is the hero of their story. And you look at the Vulture and you're like, absolutely. At first you're kind of like, whatever. But I'm not going to give it away. Even though we said spoilers, I don't want to give it away because I think this is great. But there's a certain twist where it kind of widens up the Vulture's role in the movie. And when you see that happen, by the way, one of the best twists ever, when you see that happen, it just puts everything in perspective.
I'm sorry, what are you talking about? I can't
Okay, spoiler alert.
Yeah.
So...
I'm thinking of a few things.
Peter finally gets to go on...
Oh, I know what you're talking about now.
Gets to go to the dance.
Yeah.
And he goes to... he loses his Spider-Man suit, so he's kind of low, but he's like, okay, I have this girl now, it's going to be fun. Let's go to the homecoming dance. Knock on the door. It's the Vulture.
It's the Vulture.
And
I never saw that coming.
If I had popcorn, it would have gone everywhere. I was freaking out. And then, you see him just be like a normal dad.
Yeah.
He's a total dad.
He's a dad.
He's just acting out, and you just see like the fear in Spider-Man. Yeah. And I swear to God, if you turned around in the theater, there was fear on everyone's face.
Yeah.
They were just like, oh my God. And then that whole conversation with him driving into the dance.
Yeah.
What's her name?
Pieces together how he's Spider-Man.
Yeah, like the girl's talking about it, and you can just see him piece together. Which, by the way, how did she not figure it out? When she's saying it aloud, you're not just like, she's like, yeah, and then you ran off, and then like Spider-Man showed up, and then wait a minute, like how is she? Like she's the smart one.
Maybe she just couldn't comprehend that like he is Spider-Man. Like,
yeah, but she's the like captain of debate team or whatever. Like she's the smart one. Wouldn't it have been great? Here,
just because you're intellectually qualified doesn't mean you're smart.
All right, fair. I guess you can be book smart but not street smart.
Yeah.
But let me throw this out there for a second. What if? Because I feel like this could have made her a more interesting character. What if like she doesn't really show up, but you can kind of tell maybe she's piecing it together too, and then Spider-Man goes into the dance like after the whole conversation is like, if you try and cross me, I will kill you. Like, the Vulture and him are talking in the car.
Yeah.
And then he's just like, now go show my daughter a good time or whatever. And he goes out and he, like, walks up to her and there's that scene where he's just like, I'm so sorry. What if at that moment she was just like, it's okay, I know. And she says, like, go get him Spider-Man or something like that. Like, she just knows. And then you're like, oh, so she knows you're on the team. And then it hits you, wait, she doesn't know her dad's the Vulture. He has to stop the Vulture. And then the Vulture gets caught and thrown in prison and she has to move away and she could just be like, this is all your fault.
Yeah.
And that could, and maybe she's more inclined to help the Vulture down the line or something like that. It's like something instead of just, and I guess they could kind of still do that, but just,
Well, this is the one movie where he doesn't get the girl.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
Well, it kind of alludes to something else, which is dumb. But, I think this is maybe my fourth favorite Spider-Man movie.
Okay, yeah.
Behind, I guess, Amazing and then 2 and 1.
I'd say it's my fourth too. Yeah.
And here's my biggest problem with it. And I mentioned this to you, or I know we're kind of going over on time, But I mentioned this to you earlier, that there's something missing from this Spider-Man. There's like a certain quality that just doesn't click with me.
Mm-hmm.
At first, I thought it was he wasn't as resourceful as I said. Like, he's not building the stuff because he's just kind of given the costume and with all the upgrades. He has all the different web shooters and whatever. But then I kind of thought, well, he's still going out. He's still trying to like get the Avengers' attention. And then I can't take credit for this because it's not my idea. But Rob Walker, brother Doug Walker, the Nostalgia Critic, put this so well into perspective. Is that in this movie they leave out the fact that they leave out Uncle Ben's murder. Like you don't see him get shot. You don't even see Uncle Ben. But at the same time, you don't even get a single mention of Uncle Ben. The only thing you get is like, oh, Aunt May's going through a hard time, which could mean anything.
True.
And think about what Uncle Ben's death means for Spider-Man. That's his motivation to help people, because same thing with Batman. He lost someone he cares about, and he doesn't want to see someone else have to go through that. So he's going to do everything in his power to stop that from happening to someone else. And that's not in this. And so you don't have that underlying motivation. Like, you have motivation for Peter Parker in this movie.
Trying to impress Tony Stark.
Trying to impress Tony Stark. But to me, that's not Spider-Man.
Yeah.
That's just... And that's the other thing, because whenever I'm watching this movie and he's in the costume, I never saw Spider-Man. And I couldn't figure out until
that's true.
Rob brought that up. And so that's my biggest problem with this new direction. Like, I think the movie's completely fine. It's fun. It's a Marvel movie.
Mm-hmm.
As we said earlier, it's Marvel. But it's just not Spider-Man, so it falls lower on the totem pole for me.
Yeah. Well, I think that about wraps it up. So let's go to closing thoughts. We don't have time for top 5 today, so we'll just we'll push that. Not only that, but we didn't write one, so we'll we'll push that on. Closing thoughts. So definitely nostalgia plays a huge role for me, and
Me too.
for whatever reason, movies are about enjoying it and having a good experience. And dang it, if that means if I have to have a good experience with nostalgia, like, I'll take that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why Raimi's my favorite.
I totally get that. I'm sure if I watched those movies again, I would probably have those. I would rediscover that love like you did. And
if you say that The Amazing Spider-Man is your favorite, or that Spider-Man Homecoming is your favorite, I can see why. I really can.
Let us know in the comments below what your thoughts are on Spider-Man. Which one's your favorite? If you have thoughts on anything we say, because trust us, we're not experts. We're just fans, and we love to get a dialogue going.
Yeah. Well, other than that about wraps it up. Adam, any closing thoughts?
Thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate it, and hope you enjoyed.
See you, film fans.
Take care.